Good morning, friends, and thank you for joining me for this special episode of the Sisters for Prevention Breast Cancer YouTube and podcast channel. My very special guest today is Terri Sterk. She is the author of the book, Thrive After Breast Cancer. Terri is a breast cancer thriver, an active advocate, educator, and speaker, and obviously author. Terri's hope for all of us is to guide us to recovery and wellness by providing strategies and practical coping techniques. Terri will share her own breast cancer journey, as well as the tips she shares in her book. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the program. I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you, Judith. It's wonderful to be here. I appreciate you inviting me here, and I'd love to share my story. That's what I do. My name is Terri Sterk. I am a two-time breast cancer thriver. I'm not a real fan of the word survivor for myself. I never was, because I thought, no, I want a world where I can thrive. I had that mindset when I was going through my own cancer. I had to learn it, though. It isn't something I just figured out instantly. I am a two-time thriver after triple-negative breast cancer. The first one occurred when I was 40 years old. It happened the month of my 40th birthday. And at that point, I had two school-age children, 7 and 10. I dealt with what any mom who gets cancer at that young age deals with, keeping her family together and getting through the treatments. I made it through it with chemo and a lumpectomy and then radiation. I did have lymph node involvement, but we were able to get that taken care of with the radiation, so I was cancer-free. Then 10 years later, right before my 50th birthday, it happened again, this time in the right breast, so the opposite breast. And it was also triple negative again. But the doctors determined it was a new primary and not a reoccurrence. So that was helpful to me, knowing I didn't have reoccurrence in another part of my body. It was just a new cancer. So we fought it again. And so at that point, I had the double mastectomy and reconstruction and chemo again. With triple negative.
Excuse me, Terri, did you have the same chemo again or different chemo? Excuse me,
different chemo. The second time I was treated the same as women with the BRCA gene. I tested negative, but they still treated me the same way, because triple negative, they just don't know enough about. Know exactly what causes it. So treating it, in my mind, that's why they call it a medical practice, because they're still practicing. They're trying to figure it out. But now I am confident because I'm 10 years out. I just had my 60th birthday.
Congratulations.
Last year in 23. I feel good knowing that I'm still free of cancer. There's no evidence of any disease anywhere in my body. So I'm feeling good that I beat it a second time.
Now, what is your follow-up treatment like? Have you sort of just been on a yearly maintenance, or is there other treatment? I'm 15 years out, and now I'm just on a yearly maintenance.
Yeah, I see my oncologist annually. I have an appointment coming up in February for my annual. Since I don't have breasts, there's no mammography. My doctor does do a chest x-ray about every 2 years. And then obviously blood tests just to check for any markers. But I'm feeling great. I don't have any suspicion that there's anything going on, unless he tells me he finds something. But I'm feeling good about what's coming in February.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So it's really hard to move beyond that, because when you're first diagnosed, it's always that little R word in the back of your mind, the bad recurrence word. And a lot of people who haven't been in this journey don't really understand how breast cancer changes you. I'm Christian, and I've changed the BC and AD to before breast cancer and after diagnosis. It's a challenge. So let's talk about your amazing book, which I read, and I did
Thank you.
write a wonderful review because I think it's a wonderful resource. Thrive After Breast Cancer is the title of the book. A few things I wanted to start out with, that the things that I love about the beginning of your book was that be your own best advocate. You started out talking about that and finding a purpose. And you also talked about, I don't want to get too ahead here, but the realization is that breast cancer is not just a physical disease. Talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, like, how did you come to that realization that I am always preaching, be your own best advocate. The doctor is not God. He should be your partner, not your dictator. And you have the right to question, but a lot of women are not comfortable with that. They feel
Right.
like if I question my doctor, oh my gosh, she's going to get upset. Well, that's not the way this is supposed to go. So please tell us how you came to that conclusion.
Well, it was during treatment of my first cancer. I tell the story in the book and I'll tell it here.
Mhm.
I was about halfway through my radiation protocol, which was 30 plus radiation treatments 5 days a week. My radio oncologist, whom I've gotten to know very, very well through my advocacy work in my town, I met him 20 years ago when he was taking care of me. During the treatment, I got very emotional for some reason. It was around the 15th, so about halfway through my whole regime. And I got very emotional, and he came into the room. I sat up on the table and just started crying. And he was, I could tell he was shocked. He just didn't seem prepared to walk into a room with Terri crying, because I had been strong the whole time I had known him. I hadn't been emotional. I'd been these are the facts, these are the things we have to do. And I would just do what I needed to do. The emotion didn't come into it, or at least when I was around him. He didn't seem equipped to be able to handle the emotion, which surprised me because I know him as a very compassionate, kind person. But I think the issue was that I had never been emotional, and so he just wasn't ready for it. But right then, that's when I knew I had healing to do. I had emotional healing. It wasn't just the physical healing. I did talk to my doctor, and he gave me information on the cancer center in the hospital and gave me names of people I could talk to. So that's when I jumped into healing my the emotional healing journey. That turned in the spiritual healing journey, because I had a lot of anger at God and,
Mhm.
why is this happening to me? Which I think a lot of women have those thoughts. It just happened one day when I got emotional with my doctor and thought, wow, I've got work to do. And so that kicked off my mission to heal myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
But it was so important that you recognize that, because I think we as women were always caretaking someone else. And the thing is, we did talk about a lot about this. Thank goodness it's getting more and more recognition at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference, that it's okay to say I'm not okay. A lot of times for us women, we're afraid of that because we don't want our kids to get upset. We don't want our husbands to be upset. We don't want to burden them. And that's something that we have to work on, is that it's okay to say I'm not okay. And a similar thing happened to me. I broke down in tears in my oncologist's office, and she was also shocked. I think it's just, you kind of hold it together and there's some trigger that opens the floodgates. And thank goodness it is, because we really need to accept the feeling and acknowledge it
Mhm.
to figure out a way, to get around it. And One of the other things I loved about your book was you said set a time to worry. When I was little, I was complete worry wart. And my fifth grade teacher said to me, you need to set a time of day to worry, Judy. Your time of day to worry is when you get home from school. Assign 4 o'clock to 4:10. And if you start worrying during the day, say, put that aside until my worry time. How do you counsel people to overcome that? How do you share some of the strategies that you share in your book?
Well, in my book, I have many strategies because I don't believe that it's a one size fits all, you know. So my hope is that the reader can choose what will work for them. Um, you brought up one, and that's to set a time for worry. I do that myself. I often wake up, and before I'm even out of bed, I'm thinking about lots of things that, I don't consider myself a worrywart, but I do at least start thinking about, oh my, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. And I start filling up my brain with all these things. So I've chosen first thing in the morning, I sit down at my desk and I just start thinking about and making lists. That's another coping technique is this is my journal, but it's just, I just start filling it up with whatever is on my mind. Just dumping it onto the paper is healing for me because it clears it out of my head and then I can move on with my day. So the book, I also provided some journaling prompts, questions to ask, because I think that's helpful. Some women who've never journaled before struggle with what to say or what to write. And you just write. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to worry about grammar and all of that. You just write whatever's on your heart or in your head. But I'm a writer. I always have been since I was a young child. So writing and, all the people who reached out, I would write thank you notes and they would be like stories. I would write a story to my friends and family in a note. And that was my way of thanking them. So the writing, that's a big one, but also breathing, because so often when we're in a worry state, we forget to breathe.
Right.
And we're breathing very shallow. And then all of a sudden, if we do that over time, it's not good for our physical health either to breathe shallow. We need to breathe deeply. And just that breathing will help us calm and be able to get past that worry phase. So I give breathing techniques in the book as well. Those are the highlight, the things that come to my mind right away because they're things that I do every day. There are others in the book.
Yeah, there's lots of other good ones. And one of the first things that was recommended to me was to keep a journal. And that to me was life-saving because it's also helpful in the future to go back and see, well, that's why I made that decision at the time that I made it, and not to second guess yourself, because the what ifs don't only go to the future, they go to the past. What if I had done this or changed it? And I like that what you say in the book that when you worry, it's not a fact, it's a possibility. And the other thing that you said in the book as well, which I love because it's something I struggle with, be present in the present, and that's really hard to do.
It is.
So how do you do that? How do you be present in the present when you have all these other things that you're responsible for?
I have done yoga for more than 20 years. So yoga was a part of my healing journey. But I learned about being present because I did yoga. And the reason it helps us be present is because we're focused on the pose on the mat or we're meditating on the mat. But when you're meditating or you're in a physical pose, you have to really pay attention to what you're doing or you'll fall. That's a way to think about being present during life too, because well, here's an example. I have a cut on my finger. I was cutting an onion and I wasn't being mindful. I wasn't being present. I was thinking about the next thing I needed to do.
Mhm.
And of course, missed the onion and hit my finger.
Yeah.
But when being present is just paying attention to what we're doing at the moment. There's another technique in the book that I've learned, and I think it works too, is when we're not being present, then we're away from our body, because our mind is somewhere else. So using our five senses, we can bring ourselves back. But first we have to recognize that we're not being present.
Right.
And that's the hard part. But once you're practicing and doing it every day, it gets easier. But bringing ourselves back to our body by using our five senses, if you look and you see five things, then you're being mindful because you're looking around the room and identifying five things. Well, that helps you be mindful because you're paying attention to the five things you're looking for. You
Mhm.
can even say, I'm going to see five things that are red, and then you're looking for red everywhere. And the same with hearing. What four things can I hear? What three things can I touch? If you're using your senses to bring yourself back to the present, that's a great technique
Mhm.
to help you be mindful and pay attention.
I also love that you say, give yourself grace and give yourself the same compassion you give someone else. You
Yes.
know, we beat ourselves up a lot, and I totally understand that. And you say practice gratitude. Actually, after I was diagnosed, I bought myself a sign that's in my kitchen which says have an attitude of gratitude, because when you don't appreciate the day, I remember being so much more aware of the senses after I was diagnosed. When I would walk outside, how beautiful the trees were. It's like it was a new appreciation because I was paying attention.
Yes,
And there's so many distractions in our life that it's hard to stay in the present.
it is. It really is.
Mhm.
But using our whole body and those five senses, it really helps. And you're right, being outside in nature is another coping technique. It makes you realize how small at least that's how I looked at it. It made me realize how small I really was. This world is so big, and I'm just this little speck in this big blue sky. So, because when we're in that survivor mode, all we're thinking about is surviving and
Right.
getting through each treatment and getting through the surgery and healing from the surgery. And it's just the next step one, step two, step three. And then getting to the end of it, where's the excitement? I didn't feel it.
No, no.
You
And
have is all this stuff going on in your head.
well, also, I found that to be, and I've talked to other survivors, when they sort of dismissed me from treatment and said, I'll see you in 3 months, it was like, what do you mean? You're not going to watch me, make sure I'm okay? I didn't like the freedom because it was, while you're going through that, you're looking for the next step, but then it's kind of scary to be on your own. And in chapter 5, you talk about finding your tribe. And in my case, it was finding advocacy, I would say, saved me, because talking to other people that were in the same situation and focusing what happened not as a negative thing, but funneling it into something that maybe I could make a difference. But also the blessing of meeting people like you is gave me a whole new direction, which obviously you've been doing the same thing. So how have you found advocacy to be helpful?
Well, it's exactly what you said. turning my pain into a passion
Mhm.
is how I phrased it. But meeting other women, I got involved in actually two support groups in two different hospitals in the city I live in. First, I was an attendee and a patient. But then after a couple of years, I started facilitating the group. I took over as just getting the word out when it was reminders of people and reminder of our meetings each month and things like that, but actually facilitating the discussion, asking the questions and getting the women to talk. So I did that for 7 years. How did that help me? It's just helping other people help me heal because they would ask me questions about how I did things or how I got to be where I am today. And that helped me talk about my story, which isn't easy. I didn't immediately want to talk about my story. It's hard. It was a trigger. I mean, it was hard to bring that all back. Even when I started writing the book, I have a stack of journals that I pulled all those stories from. They didn't come from my head. I have it all written down. When I initially decided to write the book, I had to start it and stop it many times. The whole process took about 6 months, but I started it years before that. I just wasn't comfortable reliving all of that all over again. But now I've got to the point where I see the benefit in helping other women because it helped me too. And I believe we are continually healing. I don't call myself healed. I'm always healing because every year we just started a new year. So I was thinking about this. Every year I think, where was I a year from now? Well, I think I'm stronger now than I was a year from because of the advocacy work I've been doing. I also got involved in fundraising for the American Cancer Society and Susan G. Komen and others because I saw the advocacy work that they do.
Mhm.
And I felt very good about the fundraising. I'm still fundraising every year. That's another, just giving back to others has helped my own healing journey.
Yeah, what I've found too, now that I've been going to these conferences, is that there's so much hope out there. These doctors are working behind the scenes by learning about what's going on. I always say that cancer is a word, not a sentence. There's so much hope that there is other things that can be done. Whereas I think before knowing what we know from being advocates is that, and this is a double-edged sword because I think some women don't want to know anything except I'm going to go through my treatment and then I don't want to talk about it ever again. And that's fine if that's how it helps. It's that's how you cope and that is what is helpful to you. It's been amazing to me to meet these amazing women and turning pain into action is what you say in your book and
Mhm.
starting a new story and accepting, the old serenity prayer, accept the things that I change the things I can, but accept the things I can't change. And as mothers, we want to fix everything. Sometimes the fix is not what you expected it to be. There's a different fix or a different path than what you would have chosen. You also talk about, which is ties into what we just said about finding your purpose. Obviously, that's what you've done. Talk about that a little bit if you'd like to.
Sure. Well, I think it's important for all of us to understand what is the meaning of our life? Why am I here on this earth? What am I here to do? And I went to college and majored in business and finance. So I worked in the financial services industry my whole career. But on the side, I was always doing advocacy work for breast cancer patients. And I was still writing stories and journals. And so I knew, I had a family and I needed to continue working because we have to have income. But now I'm to a point in my life where the money isn't my concern. my motivation is just helping women. And so I don't make a lot of money off the book. I make enough money to help me keep doing this.
Right.
But it's not about making money now. It's about serving other women and the passion that I have for that. So that's why I know it's my purpose, because I can talk to women all day long and just feel so complete at the end of the day.
Well, it's the old adage, the more you give, the more you receive, because that's how I feel about it. And I also wrote a book, and it's very little income I get from it, but it's enough to keep me going. Like you said, money is not what this is about. The other thing that you talk about, which I'm passionate about, is the holistic approach to healing. I'm very conscious of my diet, and I take supplements and taking care of yourself, basically,
Yes.
and knowing the importance of that. I never really realized how important it was until it crashed. So, which I love this. You have in there the butterfly effect. Start with small changes, because I know myself, when I was diagnosed, I was like a deer in the headlights. I was like,
Yeah.
how did this happen? I thought I ate healthy, which turns out I really didn't. But I was teaching at the time, and don't don't be your own worst enemy to say, I've got to do all this at once. Pick one thing. So
Right.
talk about that. I really loved that, because it can be
Yeah.
overwhelming.
The butterfly effect, I read that somewhere years ago, but it's all about it's like the caterpillar, you're just a day at a time, one step at a time, and eventually you're a beautiful butterfly.
Mhm.
That's the analogy. I always tell women, one step at a time. It's overwhelming to think, all right, I finished my treatment. Now what? Let's just pick one thing. Let's say I'm going to increase my exercise. I'm going
Mhm.
to try to walk 30 minutes a day, or I'm going to do yoga 3 times a week. Whatever it is, whether it's nutrition or physical, or it's working on journaling to help my emotional healing, or it's the spiritual, if it's the Bible, if that's what you do, what works for you, or if it's some other devotional kind of reading,
Mhm.
things to emphasize. Well, I call it being heart-centered. Things that nourish my soul are the things that help me get through my day. Nutrition and exercise are important too, but
Mhm.
it's also staying positive and reading positive things and being around positive people that where we trade energy. One other thing we've heard about barriers, but mine are energy barriers. I understand how much energy I can give to other people
Okay.
before I have to go replenish.
Right.
And so we have to be careful about that when we're helping other women or other people. Because sometimes I'll end the day, or more often it's the middle of the day where I just need to take a couple hours, whether that's going for a walk or doing some yoga or reading or just things to replenish my own energy level. Because talking to other women like I do, I'm giving everything from my
Mhm.
heart. And you give it all away, and then all of a sudden, I can't function. I need something else.
Well, it's
Self-care.
not, yeah, it comes down to the simple thing that they tell you on an airplane, put on your own oxygen mask before you give it to someone else.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
because if you don't have it, I lived in England for a couple of years, and I always admired the British because they set boundaries. Like 4 o'clock was tea time, no matter
Mhm.
what. You sat down, and they were like very practical to really enjoy life. And I think as Americans, we're overachievers so many times that we just think we have 48 hours in a 24-hour period. And one other
Mhm.
thing that you said, which I was actually talking to my cousin the other day, who actually is just finishing prostate cancer treatment. And he said, you know, Judy, I've decided that I'm only going to watch news 20 minutes a day, and then
Mhm.
it's off. And I think there's so much negativity in the universe that, and I don't remember that growing up. And I'm so glad my grandchildren don't watch, but it just seems like the goodness. I remember being in England and watching the news, and it was the big news that somebody's cow won the 4-H fair today. And, you know, these school children did a sold lemonade for the local old age home. It wasn't the crazy stuff we have, but you got to fill your own tank because it can really easily take you down for sure.
Mhm.
So, so what's next for you? What you got a million other things going on. You're doing some online classes, seminars, and tell me what else.
Yes.
Yes. So tell me what else is going on.
Yeah, I have actually 3 online courses that I created, going to be enhancing all of them based on all the things I've learned after writing the book. I think
Mhm.
I can make them better, beef them up a little bit. So those are available. Right now, I'm offering, it's called Accountability is Key. And it's meant to be a 7-day class where each video is, less than 20 minutes. So it's not a big time thing, but it's teaching about personal accountability,
Mhm.
because so often we know what to do, we just don't do it.
Right.
How do we make ourselves number one and take care of ourselves so that we can take care of other people? So that's what that class is about, but I'm offering it for free to breast cancer survivors in the month of January. And
Wow.
I've gotten a few people who've signed up for it. But I'm also writing my next book. I just started on that, and it will be focused on emotional healing,
Do you have a
not
name?
just
Do you have a name for it yet? Is there a name for it yet? Excuse me.
my current title is Nurture Emotional Well-Being for Women.
Mhm.
I like the word nurture. I just,
Mhm.
and I really wanted that in the title because I think nurture is something we do for our kids. We nurture them. But we need to nurture our own hearts, our own selves. But I'm working with another writer too. She's like a psychologist. So she can help me. I'm not a medical person. I'm just a person who went through cancer. And I've
Right.
had other trauma in my life, that I've had to heal from. So I understand trauma from many different vantage points. And so that's what this book is about. It's not just breast cancer.
Mhm.
Um, Even as survivors, we have a lot of other things that goes on in our lives. And so that's what this second book will be about.
Well, the book now, Thrive After Breast Cancer, they can get that on Amazon. But
Yes,
how would they access these classes that you are offering, these seminars?
I am contracted with a website called mastermind.com. And so we can provide that link as well.
Right. We'll put all the links to all of this. I'll put all the links to all of this at the end of the video and the podcast. You're a busy lady. You're a busy lady.
Yeah, I am busy,
So,
but I
uh,
love to be busy. But
yeah.
I also recognize my husband and I love to travel. And so, we're taking off for a cruise at the end of the month. So I do take time for myself,
Mhm.
and it's usually traveling with my family.
We have that in common. I'm a cruise addict,
Yeah,
actually.
I love them.
Yeah, I actually am doing one in February with my younger son and his family, with my 3-year-old granddaughter. And we're doing another one in November with some friends to Australia. So yeah,
Wonderful.
cruising is it's my passion too, because I just turn everything off and I call it my vitamin C, SEA, because I need it. I know when I need it to do so. And I used to refer it as the perfect mom vacation because they're waiting on you, waiting on you. You're not waiting on anyone for a week, which is just totally amazing. So,
It
but
is.
yeah, that's a good way to put on your own oxygen mask for sure. So, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? We're almost getting out of time here. So, anything else
Well,
you'd like to
you
add?
have hit all of it. Oh, the other thing is I do have I'll say thriving Facebook group,
Oh,
and it's over 2,000 women right now and continuing to grow. I do weekly Facebook Lives inside the group, and I also post those on YouTube. I do a lot of inspirational things inside that group. I started it during the pandemic because I saw so much angst
yeah.
in the other breast cancer groups. I
Mhm.
was involved in them because I would just help answer people's questions, and it was something I did on the side. During the pandemic, everybody was online because there was no, face-to-face support groups.
Mhm.
And I felt like there needed to be a positive place, a place women could go just for inspiration,
Mhm.
not to answer some medical question, but to get inspired and know that there's hope. And so that's what I do inside my group, is just offer hope.
Yes, so please tell us again the name of the Facebook group.
It's called Thrive, Not Just Survive.
Right, just not so quick. Okay. So people want to go and so do you have to join the group or is it a follow, a group that they can follow or do you need to join it?
They join it.
They
Yeah.
need to join it. Okay, great.
Yeah. I vet people because
Okay,
I
no,
want
that's
it to be
right.
positive, and people understand, the women understand what is expected, and they're all just wonderfully kind people.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. Well, I just have to thank you from the bottom of my heart from all that you're doing. And we will try to help you. We'll share this video and on all my social media. Again, you can go to sisters, the number 4prevention.com, or we'll have this posted and Terry's bio and how to access all of her tools that we talked about today. I'm just grateful to have met you, and I hope we'll be friends forever and we'll keep in touch. And I can't wait to talk about your next book.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate it very much.
So, Terry, I'm just going to end with a big thank you to you and thank you for all you're doing. And we just look forward to your next book or whatever you're up to in the future. And we will be happy to share whatever you're doing to help other women.
Thank
So
you, Judy. I'll stay in touch.